Hello again. Let's look at this example. 4 plus 2 radical 3 over 5 minus 8 radical 3. Now, we got to do the conjugate of the bottom. So we insert a 5 plus 8 radical 3 down here to go with the 5 minus. But because we inserted that 5 plus down here, we got to insert it up here as well to counterbalance. Now, guys, you got to put parentheses around everything. We're multiplying two terms being added together, so we got to have parentheses because we're going to do FOIL, both up here and down here. Now we're going to have it's really going to end up being a difference of squares down here, but upstairs we'll have to do FOIL. Downstairs we can kind of get out of it because after all we just have a squared minus b squared. And you know what? I messed up, didn't I? I messed up royally. That's not rad 3 squared. That's 8 radical 3 squared. And you know what? That's going to be 64 times 3. Guys, what happens is that 8, when you square it, it becomes 64. But the radical 3 just becomes ordinary 3. So you get 64 times 3 there. So that's going to be 25 minus, now 64 times 3 is 192. And 11 is now wrong, obviously. Now, 25 minus 192, that's negative 167. So now let's just yank that negative out to the side. To me it's just good manners. So the 167, I'll leave it positive because I took the negative out to the side. And we'll just have the same old numerator here. If it will let me copy it and paste it. Be nice. Okay. So there's that. And you can't really reduce this anymore, so that'll be all. Sorry about that. I'll save that. It's just when you're typing all this stuff, it's hard not to make a goof. But I try to fix all my goof ups as I go along. So you just got to conjugate the denominator. And again, we want radicals out of our denominator. Now for this guy here, we got 2 over rad 5 plus rad 11. Now the conjugate of rad 5 plus rad 11 is rad 5 minus rad 11. So technically you could use rad 11 minus rad 5, but you'd have to just stay with the guy you picked. I'm going to pick the other one. I'm going to pick rad 5 minus rad 11. So I'm going to put it down here and up here. So now by difference of squares again, now this time we do radical 5 squared, which is 5, minus radical 11 squared, which is just plain 11. So we just got plain 5 minus plain 11 down here. Now, because I multiplied the bottom by 5, or rad 5 minus rad 11, I've got to multiply the top by the same, rad 5 minus rad 11, and I distribute 2 through that that term, so I got 2 times rad 5 minus rad 11. I've not distributed it yet, and we got 5 minus 11 down here. You know what? Actually, let's not distribute it. It's counterproductive because I get a negative 6 down here. Now, what I do is I'm going to take that negative that's down there with that 6, I'm gonna bring it up top, and instead of putting it by the 2, I'm gonna suck it through. It's gonna turn rad 5 minus rad 11 into rad 11 minus rad 5. That negative came up here and soaked through. I wanted that negative out of my hair, so I turned rad 5 minus rad 11 into rad 11 minus rad 5, and that takes care of that negative altogether. Now the next thing, 2, 6, let's leave 2 filtered out. I don't want to distribute it. It'd be counterproductive. Now, if that was like a 5, I would distribute it because 5 and 6 wouldn't cancel, but they wouldn't reduce any, but 2 and 6 will. 2, 6 is 1/3, so that's just understood 1. So we just liberate that radical 11 minus radical 5. That's just a 1, and then so it's 1/3. That 3's on the bottom. Yeah, you could write that as 1/3 times parenthesis rad 11 minus rad 5, but unless your professor just makes you write it this way, I would just stay with this guy right here. So that's that. I hope that helps. And now if you got a 10, then it's the same idea. You'll go through the same steps. Again, you'll bring that negative and distribute it through this parenthesis, and you'll get rad 11 minus rad 5, which is the negation of rad 5 minus rad 11. Now 10, 6, that's 5/3. Now this time the 5 won't go away, and it would probably be good manners. Your professor might accept this, but he or she might want you to distribute the 5 on through. You'd get 5 radical 11, and then minus 5 times radical 5. It'd be good manners if I distributed the 5 on through. This time we have a 5 here to account for. Okay, so there's that. or you can write it as 5/3 times the difference. But unless your professor just insists on the other way, I just leave it like this right here, where my cursor is. Okay, so there's that. And if you have a 12, you go through the same motions, but this time you got 12/6. But guys, 12/6 is just reduces to 2. You don't even have a denominator anymore. So that's just 2 times this guy. And you can leave it like that. If your professor, he or she might want you to go ahead and distribute it. But I see no harm in leaving it like this. Just ask your professor. Yeah, there is a benefit to distributing it this time, but it just depends on your professor's taste. And that you'd have to ask him or her about that. Okay. But anyway, there's that, and I'll save this. Now, if I get negative 24 over this, again, I get, I would just multiply, I conjugate, and I go through the same steps. Now, this time I got neg 24 over neg 6. This time I don't suck the negative through the rad 5 minus rad 11, because it's got we got a negative 24 to account for. Negative 24 over negative 6 is positive 4, but I tell you what I did before I even did that, the two negatives kill each other. We just get 24 over 6, but that's just 4, positive. And notice it stays in this order. It's still radical 5 minus radical 11. Because the negative, before it ever had a chance to go through this, it got killed by this other negative right here. Okay, so there's that. And I really should say canceled. That would be the more appropriate term. But anyway. Here's another point of view. I do the same stuff. And, wait, or is that a different point of view? Yeah, sure. Same stuff. That's just the same problem I did twice. Yeah, that's totally redundant. Never mind that. Sorry. Yeah, that was kind of redundant. Let's just go into the next problem. I guess there's no harm, no foul. Let's look at this one right here. Again, now we got a neg 24 over rad 5 plus 3 radical 11. You just conjugate the bottom. It's going to be rad 5. You insert a rad 5 minus 3 rad 11 down here and up here. You could actually, you could do sort of you could do 3 rad 11 minus rad 5 here and here if you wanted to, but you'd have to, stick with the guy you pick. If you did the one guy down here, you'd have to do the same guy up here. So since I picked this one down here, I've got to pick this one up here. You could pick 3 rad 11 minus 5 here and here instead of the ones that I picked, which is rad 5 minus 3 rad 11. But anyway, I'm just letting you know. But by difference of squares down here, radical 5 squared is plane 5. Now, if you square 3 rad 11, the 3 squares to a 9, the rad 11 squares to an 11, so you get 9 times 11 right here, but that's 99. I'll go ahead and just cut to the chase. Because that 3 squared is 9, rad 11 squared is 11 itself, and 9 times 11 is 99 right there. And now up here, I just leave the negative 24 as is for now. Everything up here as is, that is. Everything that is. But now we get neg 24 times this stuff over neg 94, because 5 minus 99 is neg 94. We can, the negatives kill each other. We just get 24 positive over 94 positive, and we have the other stuff up top. But now 24 over 94, that reduces to 12 over 47. So we have 12 47ths times rad 5 minus rad 11. That's perfectly acceptable as a final answer. What I could have done as well, and you're probably wanting to know why I left it out, it's just hard to include everything. I could have just as well, you know what, I forgot my 3 right here, didn't I? I'm so sorry, guys. Oops, put that 3 right here where my cursor is. I forgot that 3. Big mistake, my bad. Sorry about that. And oops, oopsie daisy. Forgot the 3 there as well, didn't I? And I forgot the 3 there as well. And getting clumsy again. Here I go. But I'll be careful typing this in. Sorry about that, and I'll save that in editing. I'm just getting butterfingers here. Oops. But that 24 we divide, guys. 24 over 94 reduces to 12 over 47. And don't forget your 3's in front of your radical 11's. Now, you can just stay with this right here. And it might be good manners. Now, 12 and 47, they're not going to cancel, obviously. Some students like to go ahead and just your professor will probably be okay if you leave it like this. Now, ask him or her. It depends on the professor. Obviously, I don't have that authority. But distribute the 12 through if your professor is really picky about distributing things through. And like that. And let me just put or, because your professor shouldn't make you take this last step. You can take it if you wish. It's perfectly acceptable, but it shouldn't be required, I don't think. Now, if your professor requires it, they require it. He or she requires it. That's their prerogative. But if they don't require it, just stop here, okay? So, but in any event, there that is. And I bet I made the same mistake down here because I do a lot of copy and pasting. So let me put my 3s in front. Sorry about that, guys. I did the same goof down here. It's nothing I can't fix. For this one down here, the only thing different is I stick a 2 in front of the radical 5. Now, guys, you square, this time instead of just squaring rad 5 and getting 5, like we did up here, I square 2 rad 5. Now, if you square the 2, you get 4. And if you square the rad 5, you get 5. 4 times 5 is 20. So you get the 20 right here. That's the only thing different that's happening. Everything else is identical in process. These two negatives cancel, and you just get this right here. Or you can write it as this right here. 24 and 79 are not going to reduce any. And let me put or, because this should be optional unless your professor just loves this form to death or something, I'd just stay with this form right here. Okay. But anyway, there's that. And now let's put some x's into the mix. If you have 2 over 5 plus radical x, just stick 5 minus radical x down here and up here. And just distribute the 2. This time we can distribute the 2 on through. There's no point. Just distribute it on through. You get 10 minus 2 radical x. Now, difference of squares, that's 5 squared is 25. And if you square radical x, you just get x itself right there. So you just get 10 minus 2 radical x over 25 minus x. And you can't really clean that up in any useful way. So that's all. Now, if you have a negative 2, neg 3 over 5 minus radical x for the next problem, you're going to stick 5 plus radical x's up top and bottom. Yank that negative out to the side. Get it out of your hair. Just get it out of the way. So we got the negative of. Now we get difference of squares down here. Again, that's 25 minus x. Now distribute that 3 through. 3 times 5 is 15. So we get 15 plus. 3 times rad x is 3 rad x. And then you have the negative of this guy right here. Now, guys, that negative gives students, leave it like this. Now, there's several things you can do with that negative. I would advise just stopping and staying right here. But if you insist on taking it further, you can put the negative up top or on the bottom. You can't put it in both places. You got to choose. You can leave it out to the side. You can bring it up top or distributively, or bring it downstairs distributively. You can't do a mixture. So if you bring it up top, it'll distribute across and you'll get neg 15 minus 3 radical x. Or separately, if you bring it on the bottom, 25 minus x turns into x minus 25. But notice you can't have your cake and eat it too. You got to choose which one. You got to either leave it out to the side or bring it up top or bring it on the bottom. Just whichever one you like best, I don't care. And yeah, technically this top guy, you could write this as 3 rad x plus 15 by commutativity. And you could write this as neg 3 rad x minus 15 by commutativity. But, we could go on all night about the different ways you could write this stuff. I don't want to get pedantic here. But anyway, I'm just showing off what you can do. Just be careful when you have a negative out to the side like this. This can haunt you, but it won't haunt you if you know what you're doing, okay? So there's that. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Now, if you have 2 over 5 plus radical x, you're just going to stick 5 minus radical x's down here and up here. And you just distribute the 2 on through. You do difference of squares down here. And you just get this guy right here. One thing I didn't think about that I could have done a minute ago, you can suck a 2 out of the numerator. You can leave that 2 filtered out. like this guy right here, I could have left the numerator like this right here and just took the 2 out to the side and wrote it like this. If your professor insists on it, this right here, that's fine, but I would just stay with this right here. What this right here comes from filtering 2 out of the numerator and then bringing it out to the side. So you filter it out and you get this again on the top, that is. Don't go back to this bottom guy, please, but you can go back to this top guy. I could have what I could have done was just left well enough alone, not distributed that 2 through. You still do your stuff on the bottom, don't get me wrong, but on that top, I just don't distribute the 2. Just leave it like this, so you'd have you just have the raw form up here. You'd still have the raw form up here, and then you could yank that 2 out to the side. Either way, just whatever. There's several different ways to write this. You can filter out a negative. Notice that if you filter out a negative, you can, if you stick a negative in front, you can counterbalance that by making this x minus 25. Notice the x minus 25 is offset by this negative out here. This is the same as this. Or, now if you want to take your wrath out on the numerator, this time for this guy right here, the numerator counterbalances the negative. You can only have, that negative will cause one of those, either the numerator or the denominator, to turn over the opposite. Not both of them, just one of them. Okay, and you can also take the 2 out with the negative, and that's going to leave you with that. Instead of 2 rad x minus 10, it's going to be rad x minus 5. Guys, just know your stuff with these numerators and denominators, and just be careful, okay? That's the moral of the story there. Now, you do this one for a homework exercise right here, but moving on. Now here, 5 plus radical x, you just conjugate with 5 minus radical x's. Downstairs, you'll just do difference of squares. Upstairs, you'll do FOIL. And you'll get some weird stuff, but you'll get this convoluted stuff up here. And now, what I do down here, if you negate the top and negate the bottom, if you negate the bottom, you get x minus 25, the reverse. Now, if you negate the top and bottom, you just have the same fraction incognito. Like negative 5 over negative 2 is the same thing as positive 5 over positive 2. So this thing right here, where my cursor is, over this thing right here, is the same as this over this. Because notice, the 3x rad x that was positive here is negative here. The 10 that was positive here is negative here. The negative 2 radical x that was negative here is positive here. And the negative 15x that was negative here is positive here. All variables are understood to be positive, as always. They've been the whole time. But anyway, there's that. Or what you can do is stick a negative in front and leave the numerator in its original form like it was up here. But because you stuck a negative in front, you'll have to, and because you also left the numerator the same, you're going to have to change the denominator. Okay, so there's that. Etc. There's probably a buku different ways you could write this, etc., etc., etc. I don't want to go into all those. But for homework, you do this one, and it's okay. You can just leave it in this form right here, okay? There's no point in being pedantic and writing all this right here. Don't be silly. So just do this one for your homework, though. And guys, I could go on and on. You just do conjugate, like 5 plus 4 rad x. You stick 5 minus 4 rad x's upstairs and downstairs, and you just distribute and go to town, and you'll just have this guy right here. And for 5 plus radical x, you'll just stick 5 minus radical x's up top and on the bottom. It's the same idea. You're just conjugating the bottom every time and doing either distributive or FOIL up top, just whichever one you need. If it's just a mere 2, you just need to distribute. If it's 2 plus 3 radical x, you've got some FOIL in to do up here. Okay, because you got a binomial times a binomial. It's just the same idea every time. Let me skip around a little bit, and if you got this like 5 rad 6 plus 4 rad x, you're just going to stick 5 rad 6 minus 4 rad x downstairs here and upstairs here. You'll have to do some foiling up here. And when 3 radical x multiplies negative 4 radical x, you're going to get negative 12 times ordinary x, because radical x times radical x is just ordinary x. You just do FOIL and all that, and do this for your homework, and do this one right here for your homework. And guys, I'm out of time. That'll be all for this video. Thank you.